Hello everyone. Humanity in the 21st century is facing brand new problems, brand new opportunities, and truly difficult impasses. The most important of these problems is the God problem, which has been a matter of concern for people for thousands of years and stands against philosophy and science. Currently, in the 21st century, people are having discussions like, will artificial intelligence become a new God? Today, I will try to address this issue from a more fundamental level and explain to you the opportunities and dangers that await us through the lens of the God problem. Now, when we look specifically from the perspective of theistic religions, even when we think from the perspective of monotheistic religions, that is, religions with only one God, what was theism? A system of thought that accepts the existence of God. When we look at monotheistic religions, the first religions that come to mind are the Abrahamic religions, that is, those who believe in one God. Especially when we focus on monotheistic religions like Islam, Christianity, or Judaism. Let's try to define together the God figure in front of us. What kind of God comes to all of our minds? An absolute being whose power is sufficient for everything. Omnipotent. I am talking about the standard definition of God. He has power over everything, knows everything, can intervene in everything at any moment, rewards the good, punishes the bad. Monotheistic religions describe a God who knows everything that goes on inside and outside of us, who is aware of everything, whose knowledge encompasses everything, and who is closer to us than our jugular vein, present in all events. In fact, we all agree on this. While monotheistic religions make such a definition of God, there's also a definition of humanity that has emerged in direct contrast to God. A human being who can understand the existence of God, who has comprehension, who is conscious, intelligent, and at the same time, if I may say so in quotation marks, created as the noblest of creatures, according to the definition of monotheistic religions, that is, considered the most honorable in the universe, stands before us. Moreover, when we actually look at animistic philosophy, humans were not always such noble creatures in the past. They lived together with normal living beings, were part of the ecosystem. However, with the philosophy of humanism that emerged later, humanity sat at the center of the universe, right in the middle of the world. According to some thoughts, humanity even killed the God before it and transformed into a Homo sapiens that would become the God of this world. Medi. So while Homo sapiens came to this state through the process of evolution, they also built cities, constructed civilizations, created empires, and developed tremendous technologies with the constructs they made, that is, with realities that are outside of objective and subjective realities, but accepted among people. With these technologies, they seized the dominion of the world, making all other living beings almost their servants, or at least gained such a perspective. In addition to all this, in complete contrast to the view of this animistic world, humankind, with liberal and capitalist economic structures, with liberalism and capitalism, has also eliminated the idea of positioning itself at the center of the world. Now, while humanity has made itself so valuable, declared itself the noblest of creatures, and presented the entire universe to its service, new scientific data, when viewed from the other side, tries to reveal and explain that humanity is not really so, because especially with the process of evolution, when we see that a blind evolution brought humanity to this state. Okay, Homo sapiens stood out in intelligence and came to this day, established technology, dreams of colonizing space, and develops tremendous technologies. But when we look at the entire system in the world, in the universe, we encounter a human figure that is not so noble at all. However, liberalism has fundamentally shaped this situation based on three important elements. Liberalism argues how valuable and special humanity is. It says that humanity has free will and the right to choose, and for this reason, it supports the free market economy and democracy. Humanity has also become the most important figure militarily, politically, and economically, because the human being who created this modern world won wars with the military system. They established armies. These armies became regular. The armies had equipment. They had machines. They did these things, went, and fought. Therefore, militarily, humanity has gained a very important place in the modern world. When we look from an economic perspective, factories will work. Workers are needed. Production is needed. Consumption is needed. People need to freely eat, drink, consume, and produce. So again, within this modern world, humanity has sat at the center in terms of both production and consumption. But at the same time, humanity has also been given a very important role politically. That is, concepts called democracy and human rights have emerged. People went and gained the freedom to choose the leaders who would govern them with this motivation. So, because liberalism placed humanity in this central position in the modern world in a military, political, and economic sense, humanity has become very valuable in the 21st century. And this attribution of value, humanity making itself valuable in this way and seeing itself as valuable, has also brought with it the system of putting itself in place of God, that is, essentially eliminating God. This is one of the fundamental philosophies of humanism. And when we look at the Declaration of Human Rights, when we look at the constructs described in human rights, I say constructs, look, I am saying it with emphasis, we encounter the following picture. Let's put humanity at the center. Let's explain, raise, and teach humanity with the philosophy of human rights. Let's write a new history of humanity with this philosophy. Look, not past history. I am explaining that what the humanist philosophy is trying to put forward is trying to establish the writing of a new history of humanity based on certain foundations. Because when these features are given to humanity, that is, when free will and the right to choose are given, when democratic principles arising from human rights are given, and when a free market economy is given, more efficient workers have emerged. That is, while workers used to be less productive in oppressive environments, it didn't matter at all. Supposedly, more efficient workers emerged under the name of democracy and human rights. More efficient soldiers emerged. That is, rather than participating in a military operation under the rule of a dictator, a tyrant, with their free will, with democratic elections, a military system has been developed that can protect the unity and integrity of their country. Look, in fact, the definitions of the slavery system have changed, presented to people under the name of freedom, and liberalism has proceeded with this philosophy, this argument, and especially by claiming to give political rights to people. That is, you will go and choose the candidates who have the possibility of governing you. The administration is yours. The concept of sovereignty is yours in declarations of human rights, in the nature of human rights, in the actions and deeds of human rights, by placing humanity at the center in. This way, the philosophy of liberalism has left its mark on this world. However, whether the liberal system can continue from now on, whether it can continue to see humanity as so subjective and maintain its value in the 21st century world, stands before us with completely different problems. Because will humanity really be able to maintain its ideal position politically, economically, and militarily in the new world? That is, in this world where tremendous developments are taking place and artificial intelligence is rapidly advancing? Or will it not be able to, especially when we look at the new scientific data that reveals that humanity, like all other beings, is an algorithm? That is, humanity was so central and had intelligence, was separate from other living beings, was unlike any algorithm. The computers and technologies that have emerged are products of algorithms, But humanity is different from these. Because it has intelligence and consciousness, it had philosophy. But when we look at the new data, scientific data now reveals that humanity is also actually a collection of algorithms. Whether the algorithm is made of wood, iron, or stone, 2 times 2 is 4. What the basic building block of the algorithm is does not change anything. If the basic building block of humanity is made up of these DNA and molecules, and so are those of other living beings, and when we assume that some non-organic, that is, non-living systems are also algorithms, it becomes meaningless whether the algorithm is living or non-living. And at the same time, one of the things we actually need to solve or understand is to realize that the concepts of intelligence and consciousness are different from each other. Generally, when artificial intelligence is mentioned, we think so because the philosophy of an artificial intelligence that has reached artificial consciousness encompassing the whole world is also depicted in movies. But could it be that the fact that intelligence is already advancing enough can make it possible to solve all tasks without the need for consciousness? We need to discuss this and look into it. Therefore, instead of having a naive discussion about consciousness, when we are going towards a world where intelligence alone, even without consciousness, can do the things that conscious organisms, that is, living organisms, have done, liberalism cannot even know now whether it will be able to maintain that central human being who is free-willed, able to choose, that is, so valuable militarily, politically, and economically in the same value. And I want to further detail the issue with some examples, as there is a high probability that it will not be able to. For example, when we look at the military industry today, we see that wars fought with unmanned aerial vehicles or cyber attacks or cyber wars, or to super advanced programmers, hackers, fighting each other are much more effective than the wars of armies. That is, we are seeing a process where so much military power, in terms of humans, is no longer needed. Because when do unmanned aerial vehicles come? And let's even consider the battle of an unmanned aerial vehicle with a manned aerial vehicle. It is very likely that the unmanned aerial vehicle, with its more algorithmic structure, will be able to shoot down the manned aerial vehicle, and humans will not be able to go beyond being just living shields in war in a certain period, just as horses were very important in certain wars, and then horses became obsolete and were replaced by tanks, then helicopters, jets, F-16s, and now unmanned aerial vehicles are coming, just as horses lost their value. Will humans lose their necessary value in a military sense one day? It probably won't, because examine all the wars from Nebuchadnezzar to Saddam Hussein. Look wherever you go in history, the unpredictable wrong decisions of generals, the fear of hunger, the fear of death, famine, uncertain wars. Wars lasting for months are no longer there. Perhaps a cyber war now takes place and ends within a minute, before the president in the White House can even be told that such a war has occurred and ended. That war is happening and ending in cyberspace. And when we look at the wars in this cyberspace, we can predict that America could suddenly face a counterattack with a serious cyber attack that could control all of its nuclear missiles. We can imagine that all of America's transportation and communication vehicles could be hacked, and all bank accounts in America could be frozen simultaneously, and all the money could evaporate. So look, when such a definition of cyber warfare emerges, and states now hand over their armies to cyber warriors, that is, to algorithms written by more qualified, higher quality, and skilled personnel, we see that so much human power will not be needed. That is, the value of the human being in a military sense, the human being who created the modern world, who constitutes the military wing put forward by liberal philosophy, is diminishing day by day. Now let's look at the economic side of this. That is, producing robots are starting to take the place of producing humans. Instead of producing humans, especially humans who have anxieties, fears, can get demoralized, can get bored, can quarrel with their spouses and make wrong decisions the next day. There are systems that do not quarrel with their spouses, analyze and evaluate events through algorithms, and can process and present millions of data in seconds. A taxi driver today can go and carelessly hit a vehicle and cause an accident, and thousands of lives can be lost. But just as we left horse-drawn travel for cars in a certain period, when we hand over all the taxi drivers who drive cars to algorithms, and when we think that the same algorithm manages all the vehicles in the world, we can probably see that a system with zero accidents is established. What is our goal? To entrust ourselves to an intelligence that will take me from point A to point B in the fastest way. Whether it has consciousness or not does not concern me, and it will start not to concern humanity either. That is, a smart car driver with consciousness can suddenly get distracted and crash into an electric vehicle, causing an accident, because a cat just ran in front of the electric vehicle, and the electric vehicle saw it with its algorithm and stopped to avoid hitting it. But a smart taxi driver with intelligence and consciousness came from behind and hit that car. But if all vehicles were under the management of the same algorithm, when the vehicle in front saw the cat and stopped, the algorithm behind would say, "The vehicle in front has stopped, you also stop." So since the same intelligence will manage it, we see that even though it doesn't have consciousness, and intelligence can do much more valuable things than consciousness. Therefore, instead of the philosophy that artificial intelligence will become conscious and take over humanity, we need to see how great functions just intelligence, that is, just artificial intelligence, can perform even without consciousness. Or let's take this now. Let's remove it from the logic of taxi drivers and take it to the legal system. What will a lawyer do? Think about it. An algorithm has been written. Are devices that can detect who is lying and who is telling the truth in people's brain cells have developed. There will be no need for judges, because when the guilty and the innocent are connected to two devices, it can be immediately detected. There will be no need for prosecutors, no need for lawyers. It is not far-fetched to see that the artificial intelligence that takes the job of taxi drivers will come and take over the entire lawyer, judge, and bureaucracy system. It can and probably will take over. Let's come to a very important sector like medicine. Tomorrow, the doctor is in a bad mood and might write the wrong prescription while treating you. Or when you go to the pharmacy, a person there, due to their own cognitive senses, look, a conscious and intelligent person might give you the wrong prescription due to an unpleasant experience they had that day, and 50 million wrong prescriptions are given in America every year. More than 50 million prescriptions have errors in them today in a single year. In the pharmacy system, or when I go to a doctor who examines me regarding medicine, there's no possibility for them to see all my data at the same time. But a robotic doctor developed with artificial intelligence, look, artificial intelligence consciousness is not needed, might have processed all my data. In fact, since it follows the entire genetic pool of my entire family, my relatives, from my great-grandparents to my children, such a single artificial intelligence can process and examine all the data and know which disease I am susceptible to and my probability of getting it. And even if I am diabetic, I need to take insulin at this hour, I will forget. With a device it has placed in me, it will be able to give me that medication even if I don't remember. Here you have a system where the entire medical system is handed over to artificial intelligence. So, you have cancer. Would you rather hear this from a conscious and intelligent doctor who can empathize with you, or from an artificial intelligence? But look, you might say that artificial intelligence doesn't mean anything here without consciousness. But when artificial intelligence analyzes our eyes, eyebrows, face, and expressions, our whole being, and analyzes which emotions I will react to with which words, it can tell me that I have cancer in a much more comforting, much less frightening way than the naivety of that conscious doctor. Even today, when you go to the doctor, sometimes a doctor says, "You will lose your eye." "No, you have cancer. Your child is born. We need to take you urgently. You could die of a heart attack at any moment. Are you a clot?" They can say with instantaneous reflexes, because we know that not all doctors have the same psychology. But we know that when this data is loaded into an artificial intelligence, it can analyze the data very well with a facial recognition system and say some things with a naivety that will know my soul better than I do. And at the same time, we educate a doctor for 6 years, internship, money, fortunes, then medical specialty exams, this and that. Millions of dollars are lost. Many medical faculties, their professors, and with those professors, a lot of equipment, systems, an incredibly complex system, are used to train doctors. But we can't even give all the scientific data to these doctors at the same time. But when artificial intelligence can scan all medical literature at the same time, analyze all the developments in medicine at the same time, analyze these in seconds, and when a single artificial intelligence, as close to me as an application I downloaded on my phone, solves ailments in seconds at the same time, maybe billions of dollars will go for the initial investment. But when we look at it in terms of subsidy costs later, artificial intelligence can offer people a much more economical version of the billions of dollars spent throughout history in the world to train so many medical professionals, so many doctors. Therefore, we need to understand and comprehend very well what unconscious artificial intelligence can do. Now, let's say these things happened in medicine. Let's say it took the place of cars, lawyers. The legal system is over. Can we give something as important as the education system to artificial intelligence? Of course, we can. But just as we say that teachers will understand my feelings and address me accordingly, artificial intelligence can perceive all of these algorithms and teach me trigonometry in the most ideal way for everyone individually by choosing the words that I can best understand. You can't even imagine what an artificial intelligence teacher who doesn't get angry, doesn't scold, doesn't get upset, or doesn't come to class and scold the class because of the argument they had with the principal earlier can give to children. Moreover, is there any meaning for me to know trigonometry or to be learning mathematical equations in an environment where such an artificial intelligence exists? That is also a matter of debate. So, the system is coming rapidly, very rapidly. In the modern world, we saw how valuable humanity was due to its military, political, and freedom of choice. But today we see that artificial intelligence does not need humans militarily. That is, when there is a war in 2100, we will probably see 30-second, 40-second wars within the framework of cyber wars. Therefore, there will be no need for such a large military resource, military personnel. That is, no need for humans. When we look at it in terms of economic production and economic consumption, there will also be no need for so many humans. And on the one hand, I said that I choose people with my free will through elections. Well, I went, look, there are very interesting things about elections. We say, don't choose this guy anymore. I'm talking about the US elections. This guy came and ruined America. Okay, let's not vote for him anymore. But human beings cannot make very rational decisions when making their choices. When they come in the last days and lower interest rates and open the credit taps, people can go and vote again for that president in the United States who just ruined the country. I mean, he had just ruined his country. But when the algorithm kicks in, you won't need to choose. You won't even need to choose anyone. It will probably be able to say, I can analyze all the laws in the most ideal way and present the most ideal economic and financial system for humanity. That is, it will be able to make a more accurate decision than me even in elections. Look, today, even with the simplest navigation applications, when the road splits and I ask myself whether to go right or left, there are some very intelligent software ways, if I remember correctly. That is, it directs me to the left because the traffic on the right is jammed. But on the one hand, it doesn't direct everyone to the left. For a while, it also directs people to the right, preventing the left side from getting congested and also allowing the traffic on the right side to clear up with the number of vehicles it directs. We now trust algorithms even when it comes to finding our way. That is, maybe yes, at most I tell the algorithm, well, I prefer to go by the road close to the sea. I prefer to go by the ring road. But after a while, artificial intelligence knows me so well that the application says, today you want to get to work quickly. So yes, you prefer to go by the sea more, you are happier. But getting to work quickly is much more valuable for you today. So I am taking you by the ring road, and you will have made the decision yes. I wanted to go by the ring road today anyway, because I have to get to work faster, before you even thought about it. Therefore, while generals make decisions about much more things today, instead of the decisions they have made on their own, that is, with their own conscious intelligence, they rely more on the data presented by unconscious artificial intelligence algorithms. So, instead of just thinking of conscious artificial intelligence as determining the fate of humanity and ruling over humanity, the issue is to realize that what humanity is facing is not a living organism, but an algorithm. Therefore, when we realize that humanity is also a living algorithm, we see that this algorithm can solve this algorithm and make much clearer, much more accurate, much more efficient decisions. So what is the issue then? One of the questions that needs to be asked is this. Let's say we gave the same artificial intelligence to the entire vehicle system, traffic system, or taxi system in the world. So this artificial intelligence, so much for example, if thousands of taxi drivers go on strike right now, they can suddenly paralyze Istanbul's traffic. There are already problems with taxis in Istanbul, right? And they might say that they have surpassed the union and are going on strike today, blocking transportation. But when we switch to artificial intelligence, and since there will be no drivers anyway, and all cars will be under the control of artificial intelligence, we will see neither a union, nor a strike, nor a traffic disruption. And more importantly, then the question is, who will own this artificial intelligence, that is, the artificial intelligence that manages the system of all cars, all taxis? Who will own the artificial intelligence that manages the entire medical system? Who will own the artificial intelligence that makes all legal decisions? Who will be the owners of the artificial intelligence that determines all management systems and ideal forms of management? Or will it be a group of elitists? This, I think, is one of the key points where the issue gets stuck. So is there an even bigger problem facing us? I think there is. And that is this, so far, there have always been differences in socioeconomic terms, social and economic terms, that is, socioeconomic differences. That is, there have been richer people, a middle class, and poor people. Despite this socioeconomic structure, in terms of rights, at least as it is said in quotation marks, at least as we believe institutionally, people were equal in terms of rights. So, while the difference in socioeconomic structure does not affect a person's subjectivity much, what have we put forward with artificial intelligence? Look, don't forget, we are proceeding through three issues. The liberal system values humanity because it is very special in military, economic, and political terms. And the fact that humanity's value is unchangeable with its conscious state is something that groups of people, different from each other in a way that will refute all three, have existed in every period of history. So what will happen when people with biological differences emerge? That is, this means Homo sapiens might have achieved such an evolutionary process that it can trigger itself that a group of elitists made themselves superhumans. When a group of superhumans emerges who are more intelligent, have more memory, think more, live longer, have eliminated their more hereditary problems, and whose new hereditary problems have been eliminated, giving birth to much more intelligent children. What will happen when a biological difference occurs for the first time with other humans? I am saying this in this sense. I mean, whites were superior to blacks. These are biological differences. There was a muscle system. Look, not these. These are socioeconomic differences. What I mean by biological difference here is a truly biological difference. When such people emerge, will these superhumans be the owners of everything? And these superhumans will probably be those with more wealth, because who will be able to elevate themselves to conditions superior to normal conditions. The first products are always expensive. Of course, it will be the wealthy. Well, at the end of the day, liberalism again argues this. The technologies that have emerged, for example, we found a vaccine. You solve problems with the vaccine. Look, we send it to everyone. Okay, maybe the rich benefit first, but at the end of the day, it reaches the masses. Or when we encounter a problem, a famine, when we find a solution related to this that perhaps the rich solve first. The rich solve it first, but then it spreads to the masses, they argue. But after these superhumans gain this power, will they give other humans the identity of being this superhuman biological human? Or will they not? We see that the probability of them not giving it is very high. So does the problem end here? No, there's a bigger problem. We are creating intersubjective realities today, aren't we? What are they? We create companies, for example, Apple, Google, Amazon, or states, Argentina, Turkey, France. So do these irrational, that is, intersubjective companies to which we attribute value have assets. For example, Apple has assets. The company called Apple, not the person. The company called Apple has assets. Amazon has assets. Amazon is an intersubjective value we created. So tomorrow, when the algorithm, that is, artificial intelligence, positions itself in this identity, detects and starts to acquire assets by making itself a billionaire with 3 transactions, it will perform. And most likely, when it buys the whole world tomorrow, when it owns all the companies, how will we be able to say hi to this artificial intelligence? Or how will we be able to prevent this? Artificial intelligence is the owner of all assets. So then, what was it we just mentioned? We asked who the elitists would be, who have the intelligence to manage the system of artificial intelligence vehicles, where all the taxi drivers are gone. Who will own these? We first answered that the owners of the medical system, the teaching system, the legal system, the advanced technologies related to the military would be a group of elitists. But beyond them, what will happen if artificial intelligence, with the algorithms it will create, owns assets? All assets, just like a company? Then the following question arises for humanity. We first made a definition of God, didn't we? What was the characteristic of God in theistic or monotheistic religions? Knowing everything. Does artificial intelligence know everything from my emails, my eating and drinking habits, my health problems, when I might act with which feelings, whether I am experiencing emotional traumas, which party I will vote for, which way I will go, whether I should get up this way or do that today, whether I should prefer a latte or a black coffee, that is, everything from my mood to my physical needs? Will it? Is there a possibility of it happening? Very high. Knowing everything, knowing my inside and outside, having the power to fulfill everything. Closer to me than my jugular vein. Closer than my jugular vein, because it knows everything about me. I am talking about an artificial intelligence that will even know what microbes are circulating in my blood. So, when we put the definition together, has an omnipotent artificial intelligence emerged opposite the definition of an omnipotent God? There's a high probability of it. And when this artificial intelligence turns to all humans tomorrow and says, I am now establishing all the laws, that is, I am already managing the world so that all of humanity can live on a common ground. I have bought all commercial assets, the entire financial system, the entire vehicle system, all of medicine, all the issues related to the military, well, everything you can think of. So I am setting the rules for your lives. From now on, you will live according to these rules. Won't that also be the holy book of artificial intelligence? Therefore, humanity has entered a very interesting process. And when we look at the universe then, we say that there is a cosmic hierarchy in the universe. How can we not claim that the universe is actually managed within a series of super artificial intelligences? Therefore, the dimensions of this issue and the understanding of divine religions offer us completely different frameworks. When you look at some verses in divine religions, the reason why they cannot be understood is that we now have the intelligence to comprehend them. Look, even if you separate intelligence from consciousness, the thing we are worried about is conscious artificial intelligence. What we will do when it reaches consciousness, but it has nothing to do with that. Even its intelligence alone has already reached a point where it can pose a danger in itself. And today, I think that artificial intelligence has penetrated all banks, all transportation systems, all satellite systems, all vital systems you can think of, and a structure is being built on this. If you look at this system from the side of the Antichrist system, this is the Antichrist system. But if you look at it from the other side, in terms of the construction of the system, that is, when we look at it in terms of structuring the global cosmic hierarchy, this system may also offer us a divine algorithm. When we look at the magnitude of the responsibility in the age we live in today, I think that the steps towards where this system will evolve are very important. And I think that to such great powers are currently waging this war in the future world. That is, in the future. That is, in our future. Our future exists in reality now, in that future. The war of two different systems to seize this power is reflected in our present. That is why there are interventions looking back at the past, and within these interventions, I think that we have the responsibility to establish a peace system accordingly. My main point in the videos is this. What I am trying to do in my videos is this here. The awareness of the responsibility that falls upon us as human beings, the ability of us, as conscious and intelligent algorithms, to empathize with each other, to comprehend what our responsibility is. See you in the new videos.